stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena.
You know what? I've heard people call, and I kind of like it, the era that we're in, the post-truth kind of era.
And lately, there's been a lot of coverage in the real news about the growing and booming business of creating fake news.
Well, I don't know. Maybe he was watching CNN fake news. What do you think?
You are fake news. Sir, go ahead.
Let us return to the fight. This battle is far from over.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another edition of Real News in the Morning. My name is Mr. Henry. David Shine Thompson sitting over there to my left. We have a somewhat limited time this morning. By the way, just so y'all know, this is totally Mr. Henry's fault on me. I have a prior obligation starting at 10:30 Central, 10:30 Eastern, 9:30 Central. So just about a half-hour show this morning. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday this week. Friday, we'll be back doing a full show. David Shine Thompson sitting over there beside me. Buddy, how are you doing this morning?
I feel great. I had a nice, relaxing weekend. I got to celebrate my mother and my grandmother and my future mother-in-law and my future grandmother-in-law. And it was a very mom-centric weekend. I hope everybody had a fantastic Mother's Day despite the circumstances. Hopefully you found a way to make the best of it and to celebrate those mothers in your life. But I got to do that and had a great time, Mr. Henry, and I hope you did as well.
Awesome, man. Yeah, we're actually a bit separated from family up here, man. So when people have the ability to go see them, honestly, always get out there and do what you can while you can type thing, you know. And I was able to at least call the mom, the grandmother over the weekend and get to say, hey, see how they've been doing. For all those folks that got to spend some Mother's Day weekends with their mothers, we say, hey, congratulations. Have fun with it. We have a fantastic show today and an issue that was brought up by, I'm just going to be honest here, Shane. Like, I didn't even know anything about this until our Real News audience brought it up to us. Kelly, in particular, one of the diehards of this program, she brought it up to us in a Real News chat. When we say, I'd actually love to share some of this on the screen, but I haven't gotten permission from these people. But when we say that we're building a community here, the purpose of this program is to build a community, to get information from the community, to get input from, so we can somehow grow and progress during this time together. That's exactly what we're doing. I mean, Kelly started this chat chain with, I think she started, I don't know who started, but she started this chat chain with about 10 to 15 of us here from this Real News community and just sent out this story over the weekend. I think it came to us on Saturday or something.
Yep, that's exactly right. Either that or late Friday.
Yeah. And she ended up kind of like sending this thing out. At first, it came from a publication that frankly, it's called the Tennessee Lookout. I hadn't heard much about this before. And now everybody, Tennessean and all the other players that you know in the state are citing the Tennessee Lookout as the sort of go-to source for this.
Yeah, and I'll say this. The Tennessean had it by Friday night because I had someone call me or text me or something like that. Well, a friend of the show. In fact, he's on the intro. A friend of ours, Nick, called me and he said, hey, is this real? And I sent him the Tennessean article at 10:02 p.m. on Friday. So I know it was up on the Tennessean by Friday night. Big story. I'd say the biggest story of the weekend in Tennessee.
Well, and the big story of the weekend that it seems like no one really got out in front of, so we're not bearing the lead much anymore. Here's the headline from the Tennessee Lookout. Health Department gives names, addresses of Tennesseans with COVID-19 to law enforcement. Health Department gives names, addresses of Tennesseans to Health Department. I'll share this just real quick here so you guys can see what's going on. See, Tennessee Lookout. I'm just going to let this sink in for just a second here.
Sounds like. Way to put the article up. I love that you put the article up the original source and not the Tennessean. Good for you, Tennessee Lookout, for being on top. Man.
Yeah, and look, it's a bit of a risk, honestly, because I didn't, and this is part of the reason why I didn't know whether to believe the story or not when it was first given to me, because I'd never heard of the Tennessee Lookout before. I didn't know who these people were. I didn't know where they were sourcing their information from. But if you read further down in that article, they're actually sourcing the information that you just saw the headline of directly from an email, allegedly anyways, that came from the health department or somebody in Governor Lee's team to one of these police officers. right? And obviously what you're seeing here, the story, as you just heard, the Department of Health is providing the names and addresses of Tennessee residents who test positive for COVID-19 to sheriffs and chiefs of police across the state on a daily basis. A practice, obviously, that's raising privacy concerns for a lot of people here. Now, the offer to share the otherwise protected health information with law enforcement came at the request, or so says these publications, came at the request of Governor Bill Lee, according to two letters obtained by the Tennessee Lookout. Now, in that article linked at the top of the show notes here, and the one I just showed on the screen, you can actually see the PDFs of those letters in the links that we provided above. You can see the literal PDFs that were sent out. And apparently, Sean, you made a great point right off here. Like, this is not exactly a brand new practice as far as considered across the country. It's not a brand new practice as far as it's considered in the realm of pandemics, I suppose.
Yeah.
All right?
My opinion when I heard this was, and I think we've talked about this on the show, the person running the health department's in charge. I mean, on paper at least. You know, according to the law, during this state emergency, the person running the health department up there in Nashville is in charge. And I bet they didn't even give it a second thought, Mr. Henry, that it would be a story. I bet it was just like passed around on emails. It's probably part of like an informal best practices amongst the health departments is to share this information as part of tracing and, you know, all those kind of. I'm not necessarily saying that makes it okay. What I'm saying is if you're working in the health department and you're definitely more focused on health and safety than you are whether or not you're violating human rights or whatever, right? That's not your job. Your job is to focus on health and safety. They probably didn't even think about it. They're just like, oh, yeah, Maryland's doing this, you know, California's doing this, Washington's doing this, we should probably do this too, blah, 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 blah. You know, they didn't even think about it. And I don't know. I bet they did. I bet it wasn't anything nefarious. I bet it was just, hey, they're doing it, we should do it too. Or maybe a county health department asked them to do it. It could have started any kind of way. But people not thinking about rights did this. People who think about health and safety did this.
Yeah. And unfortunately, man, this has become, and this again, let me clarify a major distinction here. What I'm about to say is my opinion directly. It is. I'm not representing anybody else when I say this. This style of stuff, what just happened here with the Governor Lee administration, is a little bit becoming par for the course of just not recognizing stuff ahead of time. All right. He's kind of gotten out in front of the skis on a few particular things here where he hasn't really given enough awareness by way of PR for a couple different things. All right. And not least of which I'm thinking about the refugee resettlement situation that we have. You know, what was that, 3-4 months back now, I think. Right. Quick breakdown of what that was. Obviously, President Trump had this vetting situation going on. We had a bunch of, you know, qualified, I suppose, refugee or not even asylum seekers, but refugee seekers from 7 individual countries. Those 7 individual countries were placed on a list by Obama and the previous administration, come to America. Trump vets them out, and about 4,000 of them are talking about coming to Tennessee. Governor Lee says, yeah, we'll open ourselves up to that. We have no problem with that. Come on in here. All right, so when that happens, Governor Lee doesn't really exactly tell a lot of the legislators about this, or that's the word that I was getting or something. Doesn't exactly tell a lot of the legislators about it, and then they're left sort of mopping up afterwards. And it gets a bit of a sensation like this where it was just overlooked, right? That something like this was just overlooked, that it was so run-of-the-mill, that it was so commonplace that something that you should do. I suppose that might have been the thought, that it's like, even, I wouldn't even think, it's not like you said, John, I don't think anybody was being nefarious. I just don't think they were. I don't think they really thought through the entirety of the ramifications.
Well, no one's worried about getting sued. Right. So or, you know, the legislature's not in session. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're just doing. And I'm not making any excuses for anybody. I don't care. I mean, it's not about that. It's just giving context to the situation. Now, that being said, I don't think anybody has any authority to do anything about that list. Any municipalities, any kind of governments, like, bar them from anything. I mean, I guess that's not true. They can make sure they're quarantined. We heard that from County Mayor Glenn Jacobs. The county health department has the power to do that. Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. I think all it really means is Tennesseans aren't going to get tested unless they're in the hospital having trouble breathing. That's what it really means. And I said that on Friday. I said, what this really means is Tennessee is going to have a really low confirmed case count, because nobody in Tennessee wants to get put on a list, including yours truly.
I know, man. And that's my whole point of this today for bringing this story up. And the entire reason, though, I wanted to address this right now is just to make that one simple point of, it was just handled wrong from the beginning. And I don't think there was malintent. I just think it was handled wrong from the beginning. If there was a major PR effort to say, like, this is what we're doing with this information, this is why this information is important to get to law enforcement, they're the people on the front line. If you tried to make it an impassioned appeal to Tennesseans, maybe you would have had a better shot. Right? This is what I'm saying. Voluntary consent is like the primary exception to the Fourth Amendment, like the exception to the Fourth Amendment. If people come forward and say, like, I don't really mind if you're looking at my stuff, then the vast majority of people would say, like, yes, that's clearly not a Fourth Amendment violation. Tennesseans in particular, if you were to have come to them and said, hey, look, I'm just going to ask y'all, okay, if we can all get on the same page here. For the people that test positive, I would like to give that information to the people on the front lines, our first responders, our our law enforcement individuals that might show up to something like this if you're having a problem, or the folks that may be driving the ambulance, or I don't know, man, anybody that may so happen to be around you more often than others as your self-quarantine. If you were to make that appeal to Tennesseans directly, maybe I'm wrong, Shine, and Real News Audience, tell me if I'm wrong too. They may still have disagreed with it. Fine. I'll give you that. Okay. But at least they would have known. At least you would have been honest about the intentions. At least Tennesseans wouldn't have been able to say in the back end, like, look what they're trying to do now. Because let me just read a bit of the language and I'll get your response here, Sean. Here's a bit of the language from the letters in particular. And again, these letters allegedly came from the request of Governor Bill Lee. Here's what it says. This is a letter dated as of April 20th, sent to state police chiefs. The letter was sent by someone named Valerie. I don't even want to throw the last name out. Doesn't matter. But Valerie, she's the chief of state for the Tennessee Department of Health. Here we go. Health has a list. Health Department. Health has a list of names and addresses of people in Tennessee who have tested positive or are receiving treatment for COVID-19. Health will make that list available to you and send you an updated version of the list every day, provided that your office has entered into a memorandum of understanding. That's a very important component as far as I'm concerned. Provided that your office has entered into a memorandum of understanding with Health. Governor Lee encourages each of you to enter into this memorandum of understanding with Health to allow your officers and employees to protect themselves by having the information Health is providing. One final time, obviously when she's saying Health, she's talking about a particular entity, a governmental department, right? It's not like just like general term of health there, right? Now, the letters and memorandum do make clear that the names of all individuals who have tested positive, even those with no past or present interaction with law enforcement, will be disclosed to the police departments and sheriff officers. And again, Sean, I'll say one more time, and I'll kick back over to the Facebook screen here to see if I can get some comments. Look, I don't know where most of y'all are coming from. I will say right now, it seems like people are feeling as if this is a sense of violation because they weren't told about it ahead of time. If you would have given Tennesseans a chance to get on the same page, if you would have, I don't know, man, I'm not talking about a poll necessarily, but at least come out with a press conference and say, oh, by the way, just so y'all are aware, we are protecting our people on the front line because they have information of people that have tested positive. Inevitable follow-up question, Governor Lee, how are they getting that information? Well, Health is giving it to them, okay? At least we know at that point. Right? At least it doesn't feel like someone's pulling the wool over their eyes. Am I wrong here, buddy? I don't know.
Well, and then also being clear about who the information is going to. You know what I'm saying? Because without giving that that message from the top, you don't know if it's going to law enforcement, like your
Good
county
point.
government, your city government, or to a third-party corporation. I mean, you don't know where it's going. I mean, we have not necessarily law enforcement, but we have health resources throughout the state that are private companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know they have deals and everything, but just being clear about where the information's going, where it's coming from, and what it's used for, as opposed to letting the public in a time of stress use their imaginations to fill in the gaps. That's not a good plan. But at the same time, I bet something like this fell through the cracks. I'm being a little bit generous here because of how I'm sure how busy and stressed they all are up there. Just a little bit generous with, hey, Google's letting us know where you all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, that's a thing. The government of Tennessee is being told by Google and Facebook and Apple, like, where you are at all times. This probably didn't seem like as big of a deal. This is only where, a few thousand people are at, And we were already getting told where everyone else was at because of the cell phone data usage thing.
Yes, exactly right.
So I'm just saying, I bet this was like, well, this is like the same thing, or, well, this is not even as big of a deal as that. Because it's in truth, you're talking about raw numbers, it's not as big of a deal as that. Except for everyone's afraid as we reopen business, as we start trying to move value from one person to another, from one community to another, from one state to another, and one country to another, people are worried they'll get branded with some kind of, I don't want to use too hyperbolic of a metaphor, but like, let's say the scarlet letter. And I was going to use another example, but like the scarlet letter of COVID-19. No one wants to get branded with that. No one wants to be told, stay in, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I mean, people are already doing the virtue signaling with the making sure they post a picture on Facebook showing everyone that they bought a mask. So, like, they're taking it seriously. So, like, nobody wants any of that negative social stigma right now. Or practical, like, negatives of not being able to do business or not being able to open up your business or not being able to go to work or whatever the thing may be. Nobody wants that branding. And like I said, I think the overall outcome, I'm sure there will be a side outcome of, yes, our health and safety people will know who the COVID-19 people are, but what really is going to happen is people are not going to get voluntary testing done. That's just the case. And if you have voluntary testing outside of grocery stores and stuff like that, there's a sizable amount of people that are just not going to go do business there because of this. And this is why you not control the narrative, but if you're a leader and you're setting out a policy and you want to decide how people are going to think of it, or at least you want to be a part of that conversation, it should come from you. Otherwise, everybody else fills in the gaps with their worst possible imagination stuff.
Exactly, dude. Exactly. And think about it this way, okay? What you're seeing on your screen right now, this is essentially, I suppose this is what's going on in...
Get out of here with that. Those Terminator dogs.
Get out of here with that.
Get out of here with that. Someone find me Christian Bale and kill that thing.
This is what's going. That was so funny to me. Sorry, man. This is what's going on in Singapore right now. It's a Singapore dog that basically walks around. Let me turn the volume on. And to your point, though, man, like people are just already on a heightened state. Like they're already on edge. They're already living in anxiety of fear of people watching them, of Fourth Amendment violations, of this juxtaposition between where my civil liberties stop and where safety starts and all this other nonsense, man. And just look at this quick clip here of this is also in the context of people sharing your information. And whether it's right or wrong, it doesn't necessarily matter. Sean, we were talking about the power of stories before, man. You harp on this all the time. I would urge people to go watch this guy, Yuri Hansen. He sort of pioneered this neurology behind something called brain coupling. It's brain retrainment or neurological retrainment, basically. This is idea that as you tell stories, the narrative behind them allows your brain frequencies to couple and flow in line with the person that's telling that story. The power of storytelling is not just something that's been, archetypical throughout mankind. There's literal science
telepathy
behind it.
It's telepathy is what
right?
it is you get on the same wavelength or you have the same premises. You are at the same starting point with them, and because that you can go down the trail with them. It's pretty neat. But anyway,
think about this.
How does that
think
relate
about this,
to this Terminator dog?
Yeah,
though?
so think about the story that's being told behind some of this stuff right now. While we're talking about this story of the Governor Lee administration, listen to this.
Let's keep Singapore healthy. For your own safety and for those around you, please stand at least 1 meter apart. Thank you. Please stand at least 1 meter apart. Thank you.
Now, new technology is being tested.
And then you get into drones, too. Drones taking your temperature, facial recognition technology, all the other stuff that you've heard. All right, but that creepy dog walking around, man. That's what I'm saying. Like the power of storytelling, the power of narratives is seemingly what's driving a lot of culture right now. Okay, I'm not to say that empirical data is taking a back seat, not necessarily in ways. It's just it's difficult to find which empirical data is truly empirical. That is to say, what data is actually truthful or objective. Where do you go? Let me ask the audience, where do you go for your updated numbers? CDC, state aggregate data, WHO? I mean, which numbers are you following? Okay, and which sources are you following to say what is and is not considered a line outside of a testing facility or what's happening in the hospitals or something, right, man? It's just the narratives that are being created behind this, coupled with stories like this. That's why I go back to one more time. If you don't tell the people ahead of time what's going on, they will make up their own narratives. And at that point, it doesn't matter what the evidence actually is, because their narrative that they've constructed is already reigning supreme. It's already controlling. It's already ruling. And I'm not saying that's correct. It just is.
Oh,
what
well,
it
the point
man.
is people like stories are like an operating system. We don't operate without them. If there is an absence of a story, you will write one whether you want to or not. And I know that we're throwing around that word story. We're using that as a catch-all for a lot of stuff right now, but just think about it. When something happens and it messes with your feeling of safety, you're not just going to sit there and think, okay, I'm just okay with the fact that there's an unknown that could affect my safety. You're not going to do that. You sit there and worry about it and try to figure it out and game plan, and that's you creating the story. And how many people have been sitting around doing that with this and all the myriad little problems with this, and then enter in Terminator Dog and your name's being tracked.
Yeah,
and,
right. And drones flying around taking your temperatures on the spot, right?
That's right. That's right. And then enter, last week on Facebook. Enter last week on Facebook. And I'm not saying anything positive or negative. You know exactly what I'm talking about, Real News audience. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Where there's lots of things flying around. Nobody knows what to believe. Nobody knows what to do, except for this. Because we're dealing with the obvious things. And I know I'm kind of bringing it back around a little bit, but we're doing the obvious things. We need to open up. We need to be safe. That seems to be the only things we know. Everything else is unknown, and it's got weird stories attached to it, like Terminator Dogs, and your names are being reported to people. But, and I think people are having a normal reaction to this by trying to figure it out, looking for things. I think overall we've handled it as a society pretty well.
Yeah, it's true. I hear you.
Overall, I think we've handled it pretty well. And I've seen people of all stripes, kind of all political stripes, still keeping their heads. And like a lot of people, you said, where do you get your news? I saw a lot of people Friday, Saturday, and Sunday really reaching out to people they knew. That's what they're doing, because trust is key. If they really want to know something, they reach out to someone they know and say, what do you think? Have you heard anything? And I've seen this in threads constantly where people are not willing to even take local news sources. They want to know. They want to find someone who knows. And I think that's part of people are creating stories, and then those stories aren't good enough because they don't reflect reality. So they want to know. They want to find someone like a doctor. They say, what has been your experience at the hospital? Or if you find someone in D.C., what are you hearing about what they're thinking up there? That's where people are really at. And they're taking all this news stuff with a grain of salt. And I encourage you to even do that with Real News, because we do our best. But even if something that we think is 100% true today, because of the variable nature of all this stuff, could be less 100% true tomorrow.
Well, and you also have to look, man. Again, part of the theme for this story today is to say just tell the people about it. We're ready for it, like you just said, Sean. Like there's not a lot that's too shocking to the American people at this point.
Hey,
I can almost guarantee you that. Go ahead,
Mr.
Sean.
Henry. I know we're ending a little early today, and there's requests to cover #Obamagate in the chat.
Oh, man,
I've had 3 people say get on to POTUS. We get it. That was Friday's news. So we've covered this for about 20 minutes. I think it's going to be kind of a developing story, the governor thing, because I bet there's going to be some kind of response today in his press conference. We'll cover it tomorrow. But the Flynn saga kind of continues. If you want to touch that real quick before we head out the door.
Yeah. We can at least touch this down here. There is a story linked. Let's see here in the show notes. New York Post is writing this. Is just a quick rundown as to Adam Schiff lied about the Trump investigation and the media let him. All right. Now, obviously, what you're seeing right now is a slow trickle release from Adam Schiff from a lot of these key witnesses that came out of the Russia-Trump hearings. All right. And the interesting thing about this, man, is Adam Schiff was initially saying that he was not going to release this at all, or he was going to release it in parts. And at least a while back, the idea was that the committee had already voted to release the entirety of these records once they came out. All right, so Adam Schiff is now making yet one more play, one more time to try and figure out how to maintain this story. And it's starting to look like in some of those releases, what we're starting to see is that key players, I'm talking Clapper, I'm talking Loretta Lynch, I'm talking major individuals from the Obama administration, were already starting to indicate well prior to the investigation, or at least in the midst of the investigation, we don't see any evidence at all for this Russia collusion narrative. Like none at all. And you go all the way back to the original IG Horowitz reports that seemingly indicated
these IG reports are interesting, okay? The IG is an inspector general. Obviously, he's inspecting, okay? He does not necessarily, in my opinion, have the capacity or power to actually bring prosecution. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Nevertheless, he's just inspecting. So he's not going to make a hardline stance on what should or should not be necessarily. He did say, however, the initial start of that investigation might have had enough evidence to back it up. But the second or third or fourth or fifth startup of this again, when they had to look back into Carter one more time, when they had to re-up those FISA court warrants the second and third time, because those only stick around for 90 days, there was virtually zero evidence. So that's months and months ago we heard that from IG Horowitz. Now we're getting release of some of those transcripts of the witnesses that were interviewed, and they're essentially backing up the same thing, which is why Adam Schiff was trying to put such a stall on this thing for such a long time, right? Saying that the House Intelligence Committee didn't release interviews of the transcripts of the 53 interviews from the committee's Russian collusion investigations, that then he'd do it himself. This is what the Director of National Intelligence, Richard Grinnell, said over a couple days back, where he's forcing Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff to release some of these things, saying, Adam Schiff, if you don't do it yourself, I will do it for you. Because what's inside of this information is the key players that just a few months ago were backing this narrative. Just a few months ago, we're saying, yes, the entire thing was on the up and up. We had more than enough evidence to look into it. Now, on record, their statements are saying the exact opposite. We had no evidence to look into this. This is also the Woods trial stuff that just came out a while back. The Woods trial stuff indicated that on several occasions, if not every single occasion, one of those FISA court renewals came through, there was virtually no evidence at all to back up any of the court renewals, right? So it seems time after time after time, not only did the very beginning of this start on shaky ground, every single time it was renewed, they had virtually zero evidence to go forward with the renewal. So the question then becomes, inevitably, what was the purpose then to continually search through this? If everyone that's involved knew there was no reason to continue to renew the thing going forward, it obviously looks like there's a political motivation. And this is where you see Trump coming on the back end, obviously, of the tweet storm that came out after this as well, saying like, look, man, you guys have investigated me. Now it's time for me to investigate you.
Well, a lot of the investigations have been done. It's all going to probably be being synthesized by Durham and put into a report and probably action taken. And we'll just have to see, because it was the falling apart of the original Russian collusion narrative, the inclusion of President Obama and Sally Yates and Clapper in that meeting about Flynn that came out on Friday, the collapse of Schiff's committee hearings. I mean, basically have you seen the videos where people were shown saying stuff in public and then people showed what they said in private because it's now released, and the lies and hypocrisy? It was a good weekend for the administration. It was selective. I know we got to head out of here, Mr. Henry.
Yeah, man, I got to be off at 9:30, unfortunately, but I'll tell you what, man, we'll sign off for this morning. We'll be back tomorrow doing it fantastically big again. For Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday this week, we'll be going right till about 9:30. Unless we get a guest host on or Sean wants to continue for the next half hour alone, we'll figure that out. Let's see here. But for right now, got to hop off. My name is Grant Henry. David Sean Thompson.
You go ahead and head out, buddy, and I'll take us out of here.
All right, sounds good, man.
I'll give a few announcements, a little housekeeping. But have a good day, buddy, and I'll talk to you soon. All right.
Talk to y'all later.
All right. Well, here, let me put it back on the window real quick before we head out of here. I'm going to do a quick commercial for realnewsradio.live. Please check it out if you are a regular listener to Real News. You can catch if you only watch on YouTube or only watch on Facebook, we have both the links there so you can have a backup stream. We also stream live at realnewsradio.live. Also, you can find the Real News Radio Mr. Henry approved Tumblr, where you can drink your coffee in style and Real News style there from realnewsradio.live. Also want to let everybody know, I think he included it in the description, the fight continues to stop these state bailouts. You'll be hearing more this week from what's going on in Washington, D.C., all the details of this new CARES Act. I mean, you're starting to see it. We've posted it all over the place. There's several big expenditures. There's several major, I don't know what you'd call it, points of contention in law that will be decided in the next couple weeks. You want to pay attention to what's going on. We'll be posting links in the Real News, on the Real News page. But that link for, what was it? Letting your congressman know that you oppose state bailouts. I believe it's still in the show notes. I'll have to check. But if not, I will post it right after we get done with the show. But thank you so much for joining us today. I know it's a little bit short. We're going to be short. Grant didn't tell me about this till a little bit over the weekend, so I didn't get a chance to prepare for something. But and I know there's lots to talk about. But we'll have a longer show. I think he said we have to do this tomorrow too, so I'll prepare for a longer show tomorrow. But I hope you all have an excellent day. This has been Real News. I'm your host, David Shine Thompson, and we'll see you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m.